Welcome everybody for another session of Ignite. Looks like we got a good turnout happening. The most important people are here, wouldn't you say? Well, we check in and just make sure that you guys can hear me if you're in a place where you can unmute. We don't need to do roll call, but just like, let me know you can hear me.
We can hear you.
Yay, thank you, Elizabeth. That also helps me adjust my volume too, so I can hear you guys. Rosalia, you there?
Good.
All right. Okay, guys. So we're actually on Spark number 5. And we've kind of got these core, working on our business on how to grow the business. So if you have the handout, that's going to be really good. We've got some of the core stuff in there. I think I've hammered to death the master list, that you have an opportunity for 100 sales. We're actually confirmed some of that stuff that we've been talking about over the last few sessions. Today's about setting goals. And again, this is all part of growing your business. And then we're going to really do the hands-on, like actual doing things. So now I really want to start transitioning to have you guys participate really get involved here, because this is goals. And also now we have enough sessions behind us that, think about this for a minute. And I want you to think about this even between now and our next session is what is going to help you really get this stuff to stick in your head, really get it to start showing back up in your business and really implementing and taking advantage of the time that you're inviting in Ignite. That's the biggest thing I want to take away from today as we're looking at goals. Like anything else, setting goals aren't always necessarily fun, but like anything else that we're doing in this session, I'm hoping that you're going to hear and think about goal setting a little differently than you did before you showed up today. And maybe get a little more excited about it. And actually, I say that, but you guys tell me, do you like setting goals? Do you love setting goals? Do you hate setting goals? Have you set goals in the past and something didn't work right, or you set goals in the past and it's been successful? That might be like the best way to kind of just hear from you guys on what have you done with goals, goal setting, any of that in the past. And if you haven't, or you don't know if you've really done it successfully, that's good too. I mean, that's the purpose for being here today. But that would help me understand where you are as far as goal setting. So we make sure we highlight that and cover that in the material today. So you can set goals for it and really like make them happen. Anybody got anything they want to share on goals? Your experience in the past, what's worked, what hasn't worked? Nobody really set goals. I mean, you set goals in your head. Go ahead.
I usually just like write down what I want to do, and I usually have like a time frame. I write down like a time frame of when I want to, accomplish it. That's kind of what I do. I did that with real estate. I just got my license in November, and I accomplished that. I just started actually a few months ago to start like writing down. So I find like writing down is how I kind of do things with goals.
No, that's awesome. So it may not be this hardcore, like, here's my goal, I'm going to do this by this date. You're just kind of making your list and going every day and working towards it as best you can. Would you say that that's working well? Do you feel like you're on track or getting there faster, maybe not fast enough where you want to be, or what's your experience with that?
I feel like when I write down, rather than just say it in my head, I kind of get it down. I kind of accomplish the goal, rather than just, I don't know, just for me personally, I feel like I have to just like write down.
Yeah.
Kind of write it down, because I make it like my mission to accomplish it when I know that I have it written down.
Yeah. Great. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else? I see another mic open. Anybody want to share? And again, this is the reason why I'm asking is because it's really going to help us help solidify the content today, so you can relate it into something where, seriously, when you guys start setting these goals, and it could be something like finally writing it down is what starts to make it show up. but it's writing down what you really want things to look like and then getting there as quickly as possible, because you will have a lot of distractions along the way too. And I mean, you can have a goal of adding 5 people to the database or calling X number of people a week. But when you have other projects showing up and things that are going to come your way, it's how you set these up and make them reality is going to be important for you. Anybody have anything else they want to add about goals? What's worked, what's not worked, what you struggle with?
Just adding to that, I like to like when I write down my goals, I also like to like leave it by my bed and just glance at it like every day. So I know, for me, it just gives me this like vision. And I'm just always trying to, accomplish that goal. I just feel like when you see it, you envision it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure you guys have heard, well, I shouldn't assume, but there's a thing out there called vision boards. It's a project you go through where you cut out pictures of stuff. And there's some fun stories out there where literally I remember somebody sharing that they had a picture of this mansion on their house, just a big house. And it was like 10 years later, he was unpacking after they moved into their new house. And it was in The Secret. That's what it was in the movie, The Secret. He's unpacking in their new house, and he one of those old boxes that just has stuff that's moved and been in boxes for a while, pulls it out. It's his old vision board from like 15 years prior. And that house is the picture of the house they are actually in. It was just kind of freaky. That's not always going to happen, but all right, you guys just want to delve into it and see if it kind of jars something loose for you or what you might have questions on, because goals are really personable. I'll tell you, as a business coach, just as coaching, they say you can't motivate somebody to do something. You have to really find that inner why. I know this going clear back to the very first session, what's your why, and mastering your why, if you were on that one. When you figure out and peel back 6, 7, 8 layers and keep asking, like, here's my goal. Okay, it's to make $250,000. So what's important about that goal? And you start digging down. And when you get down to the bottom, it's like, so if $250,000 makes my bills get paid and I don't have to worry about money, so I can focus on doing better in business and not worry about business, and then be focused on my family. And when I'm focused on my family, everybody's happier and we all get to enjoy each other. And when we enjoy each other, our love for each other is stronger, and we just have a better bond in our family, and it gets all the way down to the core. That's what's going to get you excited to jump you out of bed. So there are some cool things that you're going to hear about goal setting in today's session. I mean, Ignite stuff is pretty basic stuff, but it's actually pretty core stuff too. And these first few sessions are that way. So does anybody have anything they want to jump in on before we jump into the material here? All right. So again, on the Spark, we're talking about growing our business, and in Ignite, we'll be talking about running our business. And today we're talking about setting goals. And for most people, one of the first goals is just the lead generation part. How many people are you going to talk to? I mean, Gary over says everything by saying, not over says, he encapsulates everything by saying it's a numbers game. And as we go through goal setting, I know as a MAPS coach, when somebody would set a number goal, I would do the same thing with the whys. Like, whatever your number goal is for this year, whether it's a volume or whether it's transactions, I would ask you, why is it that number, right? Because that's going to boil down to, if it's a volume or a transaction goal, you know what your average price per se, your average sale price is, and you've probably calculated it based on a 3% commission to figure out what you're going to make, and whatever you're going to do with that, if that's pay off some debt. So I have somebody that I'm coaching there, the call today was, I just need to make about $60,000 a year. I'm a single mom. I've got a 10-year-old son. I really want to be home with them as much as I can. And I don't really need to make a lot. Like, I just need to make like 60,000, but I've got 9,000 left on some credit cards, and she went through a divorce, right? And the alimony stuff's about to quit. She really wants to do this on her own. So she's got $9,000 in credit cards and $7,000 left on her car. And she was saying, I've almost got my debt paid off. $15,000 is a lot. That is $16,000 is a lot to pay off. I mean, for being close to paying it off, it must have been a lot more. And she's been chunking it away. And so if somebody set a goal, whatever that goal is, I mean, at Keller Williams, you get to create your own lifestyle, your own business. And for whatever it is, it could be, time off. You just want 5 days off a week so you can sell 3 houses a week on the weekend, right? And make enough money to pay the bills and have the whole week off. You can do that. You just have to do the right activities in those 2 days that you'd be working on the weekend. But anyway, it comes down to, if you divide that by 4, it's like if you did 12 weeks, there's a big book out there right now that everybody's reading. It's the 12-week year, if you've seen that. And it's basically taking your goal and chunking it down to 12 weeks, which is basically a quarter of the year. Want to make 200,000, so it's 50,000 a quarter, but 50,000 divided by 12 is going to be what, about a little under $4,000 a week. So that would be 1 commission sale a week, and you'd make $200,000. So if week 1 passes and week 2 passes, and now we're on week 3 of the month, we are already passing through the first month of the year. 2022 is almost 1/12 over. We are 1/3 of the way through the first quarter of the year. Good thing we're having a goal session right now. And if you didn't hit those sales in that first week and the second week, it actually really isn't okay, because you had that stuff set to pay off your car and pay off your credit card. And so as a coach, I always have to come back and say, okay, if you don't have those 2 sales and you don't get 3 this week, then what are you not paying off this year, the car or the credit cards? Because we're already now, $8,000 behind. And that's not counting your main living expenses. Somebody wants my attention over here. Quit, kitty. Sorry about that. The cat was getting the mad screaming up there. So like, is it okay if you don't pay your credit card off this year or your car? And it's like, no, I really want that paid off. Okay, well then we have to readjust our goals and figure out, what is it going to take to get 3 sales in a week? And it's just, when it comes back to a numbers game, it's a numbers game. So is that sparking anything with anyone? I just want to make sure I'm not just ripping through the material really fast, but you guys are actually getting it. Anything coming to light or mind for you on any of that? So I don't want to pass over this, because we were just talking about envisioning your big life. And so here's the one thing quote: who we are and where we want to go determine what we do and what we accomplish. And that, on the surface, again, if we dig down just a little bit from that, if you dig down from that, it is a numbers game, and you get to create what you want. But also, if you don't do the right things, you're not going to get those things. So what is your absolute must have to do to create this life that you've got sitting in front of you as your goal? And I'm kind of spending a little bit of time on this because I'm 30 years in real estate, and you go through goal planning and you have these big detailed worksheets. Sometimes you'll go through an actual business planning workshop, and it'll be a 10-15 page book, and you're filling out all your goals and you're doing all this stuff. And we look at them at goal time and we kind of set our year up for them. However, like 2 months down the road, it's like, where's the goal book that had all that cool stuff in it, right? And I really, truly am a lot like you. Is it Albanora? Is that how I say your name? Not close.
Yes.
Albanora?
Yes.
All right, cool. So I'm a lot like you, where if I wrote stuff down when I did the business planning, it was amazing that what I wrote down, I really put time in, and I visualized it, and I saw me there. Like, one of them I remember early days was I wanted to take my kids to Disneyland.
That's cute.
Yeah. So I'm not coming from a family that's been in real estate and been successful. I'm first generation real estate agent, actually first generation self-employed. I consider myself pretty successful. My parents wouldn't have lived on a lake and had boats. And I mean, I guess they did have boats. It's all relative, right? But I remember setting that as a goal, and we had never been to Disneyland or any of that stuff. And I remember at the end of the year, my broker had me come back in and sat down and said, let's review your goals for the year. I'm like, oh God, I haven't even looked at those since January when we first did them. And she would go through and pretty much all that stuff was checked off. And I had just gotten back from Disneyland. And that was the first time I had something that big on there. And it was one of those things where I made the commitment, bought the tickets, scraped up the money, just bought the tickets so we had to go, or I probably wouldn't have gone. But coming back and it was there. So that putting it in writing, I think, is a huge, huge help, guys. If you have goals, like if you see some of the most successful people, and you might think that somebody might think this is kind of weird. I was always that guy that thought it was kind of weird having pictures hanging around the house and all the quotes on the mirrors and goals written down everywhere. I was always kind of that person. I thought that was kind of weird. But if you write it down and you put it in front of you and you see it all the time, you're going to have a better chance of accomplishing what you set out to do. So again, jump in anytime you guys want to add something that you could share, a personal experience where you achieved something because you did it a certain way. You wouldn't believe how many people it might help.
I actually started doing that and I felt like it helped a lot. It helps.
Exactly. So sorry about that.
What works for me is actually, like you said, like writing it, but also visualizing it. And I work great with pictures, but mostly checklists. So I just make sure that I have a whiteboard, I write them down, and I'm able to check them off. I even earn a nickname, Checklist, because I do checklists for everything.
Yes. And well, I love that you say that, because one of the things that we're going to talk about is the 411. And is there anybody in here that has no, well, I won't ask who doesn't have a clue what the 411 is. Is there anybody who uses a 411 every single week? No, probably not every week. Are you familiar with the 411? Oh, we got a little background noise. No, it went away. How many of you don't have a clue what the 411 is? We don't have everybody's video on, so I can't see everybody. So you can flash your mic if you don't know what a 411 is. We're going to talk about it. All right, cool. Don't know what it is? All right. So we're going to talk about that. And I love that you said checklist, because the 411 can actually be a checklist, but it's a checklist of the absolute must-do items. It's not a checklist for a to-do list. And we have a lot of just writing down a to-do list of the things we got to get done. You know, get the Christmas stuff put up in the attic is on my to-do list. However, that's not on my 411. It's not a have to do list. In fact, the Christmas decorations have been sitting in boxes right where they got taken down over a week now, because I had to deal with COVID a week ago, had to do the quarantine thing. I'm out of quarantine now. But now I'm so busy catching up on things, I still haven't put the Christmas stuff away. That's a to-do list. And the things with to-do lists, a lot of times, is we write down all the things that are coming to our mind and we start knocking them off, and that's good. However, most to-do lists have things left over at the end of the day. We roll them over to the next to-do list, and there's some things that just keep rolling over. The 411 can be your absolute must-have-to-do checklist, and you're marking off the most critical items that will grow your business or reach those goals that are in there. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So on this thinking, how big is your box? Let me see, I'm on the next one here. I think that's it. Yeah. So actually, let me go back to this one, make sure I don't have any notes on this one. I mean, it really is just where you want to go, determine what you need to do and what you need to accomplish. Couple things that I saw in here is when you do big actions, like if you're doing lead generation, that you're actually talking to people that will generate a listing appointment, you're going to get bigger outcomes, like an appointment. You could have other actions that you're doing that seem like you're working hard, like sending out a postcard to a neighborhood, doing that kind of stuff. It's more of that passive marketing stuff, and it doesn't get the biggest outcomes. But either way you do it, if you're doing big activities or small activities, if you need X, once you figure out your goals and you write them down, you need X number of dollars divided by your average sale price. If I mail to 1,000 homes this month, just track how many listing appointments did you get. First month you mail, probably none. Okay, that's not enough. So next month I better mail 2,000 postcards. How many appointments did I get? I might not get any. Okay, so next month mail 3,000 postcards. And now you get 2 appointments. Okay, so now you know 3,000 mailings will get you
Okay.
about 2 appointments. And so those are the kind of things that you track. If you call 100 people, do you get 40 on the phone? And out of the 40 on the phone, how many of them actually agree to meet with you? And you kind of do it with tallies. And I'm saying this because you want to track your actual results, the actions that you're doing and the actual results you're getting. Are they big outcomes or little outcomes? So you might know that from that tracking that tag, I know that it's, say, 100 dials to get 1 appointment. 100 dials gets 40 people on the phone, gets 1 appointment. I also know that out of that 100 dials that got the 40 people on the phone, I pick up 2 appointments over the next 5 months from that group if I'm tracking it. So the bigger action might be the follow-up is getting me 2 appointments versus the 1 appointment on the initial call. So now I start realizing how important it is to stay in touch with people. Is this good stuff, having this conversation, right? Kind of keeping it in front of you. Okay,
Brad,
so
I
yeah,
just have a question in regards to the postcards. I heard, or is it just for the flyers that we're not allowed to like put them in the mailboxes? I'm in Jersey, so I guess we're all in Jersey. I don't know. So I'm not sure, like, how does that work with the postcard? Is it just the flyers that we're not allowed to put in the mailbox? Do you know?
it could be a flyer, it could be a postcard, but you're sending it through the postal service.
Okay, so if we send it through the postal service, we're allowed, like, then obviously it goes in the mailbox.
That's
Okay.
just regular mail. Yep. Now,
Okay.
I
anytime
thought, wait. I thought in Jersey, I spoke to the post guy and he was like, you can't advertise anything through the mail. You can't mail it. You can't put it on the person's door. You can't attach it to the mailbox. You can't put it in the mailbox.
so
I live in Jersey.
So at home, you get nothing from a car dealer, nothing from window replacement companies. You don't get any of that kind of stuff.
I don't, what I know.
You don't get garage
what
door
I
company, that kind of stuff.
If
I
I
get like
do
a
get,
flyer, they'll do it, but you'll get, it's not like, there's a police that polices it on a regular basis.
Yeah.
But if they find out, and I remember Sally, our broker of record, I think a couple of years ago, says you cannot advertise via email or something. Or like, I remember, like I'll get like, oh, you've been pre-approved, like American Express, like those things for some reason are okay, but I don't know. That's just what I was told.
So that would be my question. If I'm getting something, you don't get anything like this ever in your mailbox, ever.
Yes, of course.
You get these in your mailbox, right? At home with a stamp on them, right? Okay. What? Go ahead.
Like I've had,
Want me to move the car?
like I've had stuff like that. I've had some, not a lot, but the postman said that you are not allowed to put anything in anyone's mailbox. I go, what if they mail it?
Oh,
he's like,
no,
you can't have any kind of advertisement.
So you can't just stick it in the mailbox.
No, you're not allowed to.
Yes, that I wanted to be clear. I said, go to the post office, put a stamp on it and run it through the mail and it comes like regular mail. You should be able to do that all day. Should be able to do that all, right?
I'll speak with Sally. I'm not sure.
Yeah, you cannot open up a mailbox and stick something in it if you're not a post person. That's illegal all across the board, no matter where you go. It's not just Jersey. So yeah, go ahead.
If you're dropping them off at the post office and they see, because it's a postcard and they see that it's a flyer and you're putting a stamp on it, like, wouldn't they say, oh no, that's illegal, you can't do that? Like,
no, if you're paying for a piece of stamp, you're paying to put that in the mailbox.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, like I agree with you. Yeah.
That's just regular mail. In fact, they have drop ship. If you just call here's how you could really find out. If you call the post office and say, do you have door-to-door like drops where you pay a bulk amount and they just drop off whatever you have in each mailbox. You don't even have to address it or anything. It's called I forget what it's called, door to door, or it's drop
Mail,
something.
yeah, drop. I think it's service line or carrier line drop. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
My friend does it. Here in Jersey. He does a zip code, and he says,
Yeah.
okay, send this many to this zip code, and done.
Yeah.
He doesn't even have to worry about anything.
There's no restrictions on what you're sending people. Now, what we also have coming out is, is it junk that you're sending in their box, and people call and complain to you because you're junking up their mailbox? You're going to have those people no matter what you do, but it's usually about 1 per 1,000 that really get mad and yell at you. And we let that one person mess up everything that we're doing. So anyway, you definitely want to check your legalities on it. I can't imagine that the post office would limit what you would buy stamps for. They want to sell as many stamps as they possibly can. If you're paying the post office to deliver it for you, I mean, pretty much mail anything you put a stamp on, the appropriate stamp that I'm aware of. So that may be the difference there. Yes, walking around, dropping off flyers, sticking them on doors, you got to look at your area on that. And how is it being received by the homeowners too? See, now I would flip that. So if we're talking about goals and we're talking about actions and big actions and little outcomes. So if I look at little actions, like just putting flyers through a neighborhood, so you're really kind of waiting for people to call you and say, hey, I got your flyer. I'm interested in finding out what my house is worth. That's really what we're doing with the flyer, right? We're not being proactive. It's more passive, and we're dropping it off and waiting for them to call. A bigger action would be is if you were gonna take that flyer, you knocked on the door and the owner met you at the door and you handed them the flyer and told them what it was about and introduced yourself. Now, after you left, you wrote them a handwritten note, said, thank you so much for opening your door. During times like this, it's always nice to meet people. And even though we had our 6-foot distance and we had our mask on, it was great to talk to another human being. If that was my note I got afterwards, the person's probably like, oh my gosh, that was nice. It actually kind of was cool to see a human being again, right? And so I'm setting the tone for how I want them to remember that interaction. And they're going to get that like 3 days after I was there. Hold on 1 second. And if I'm muting you because you wanted to say something, just unmute yourself again. So if I knocked on the door, they answer the door, I introduce myself, I hand them the flyer, tell them what the flyer is about. And again, I would probably add the one part. I know you're probably not thinking of buying or selling now, but I am selling a lot of properties in this neighborhood. I love this neighborhood and helping homeowners protect their values here. So I just want to introduce myself. And I did that, and I just went down the doors and I knocked until, say, 5 people answered the door for the day. I'm going to go back to my office at the end of the five openings, because that might take an hour to get 5 people to open a door. So it might take an hour, might take a half an hour, might take 2 hours. It depends on if it's a bad day or not, whatever. But after I got my 5 connections, I would go back, I'd put them in the database, I'd write them a handwritten note, and I'd start them on a little follow-up plan about the neighborhood. And I'm kicking it off with the handwritten note that says, thank you so much for opening the door. It's great to talk to a human being, blah, 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 right? Love your neighborhood, love that you love your house. And then I got my drip going. Now I go back to the neighborhood tomorrow and I knock on all the doors that didn't answer, skipping the houses that did until 5 more people answer. And I come back to my office. At the end of that, I put those 5 people in, I write my 5 notes. If I did that, if it's a 500 home neighborhood, or let's just say a 250 home neighborhood, it's going to take me 2.5 months at 5 people a day during the week. And I'm just making that my action. And if I did that every single day for 2.5 months until every single house opened the door and I wrote them a handwritten note, can you see how those actions are a little bigger action than just running by the doors and dropping off a flyer? So my outcomes are going to be way bigger. So that, again, when you're setting a goal and you're looking at it, if you track your flyers and realize you're not getting the return that you want, you either have to increase the amount of flyers you're delivering or find a better way to do it. And a bigger action would be to meet them face to face and introduce yourself. And I say face to face, and then everybody goes, oh, COVID, nobody's doing face to face. I'm talking 6 feet back with your mask on. You can't be any safer than that. Right. And just like you knock on the door, and if they look out and see somebody stand there and you're stepped back 6 feet and you got your mask on, right? I mean, they're probably going to open the door. and just say, hey, I know it's COVID and stuff. However, I love this neighborhood. I'm helping owners protect their values, and I just want to stop and introduce myself. But I understand that the way you opened your door, I just wanted to say hi and introduce myself. I'm going to leave a flyer for you that just talks about finding out the value of your home, if you as a homeowner are interested in knowing that. So that's what I would do. That's going to get bigger outcome because I'm going to do the follow-up behind it. Does that make sense? Does that, I mean, so everything that you're doing, you actually want to track the results to find out if you need to do it bigger and better. So that's where this goal comes to, and you got your handout here. I think we're on page 5 right now, or 3. We're on page 3 in your book, Envisioning Your Big Life. And this is where you really get to write down what your big life actually looks like to you. I'm finding my page 3 here. It's just a blank page where you get to put in the middle what your goal is for the year. And then what are the things that you're going to do once you hit that money, whether that is paying off school debt, paying off a credit card, pay off mom and dad's house. So there's an example in the book on that. And you get to create however big of a life you want. So if you're newer in real estate, it might be just getting to the survival amount and paying off some debt. So once you get that box filled in, what are you going to do with that money when you make it throughout the year? It'll help you start to figure out that it's not going to be okay to not go out and knock on those doors today. I have to hit 5 a day. I have to get in front of 250 people, and I have to be introduced to all 250, which, by the way, think about the result here. We're talking about big outcomes. If you did flyers through the neighborhood every month for 6 months, 250 properties, right? And you did flyers, or for 2.5 months, you actually met 5 owners a day and you wrote them a handwritten note and thanked them for opening the door. And we're talking over 2.5 months. There's some people that might not open their door. You might be knocking on their door 30 or 40 times before they finally open it. You catch them at the right time and the right day. So it takes you 2.5 months and you met that many people, 5 a day, every day for 2.5 months. Which one do you think is going to get you more business, right? But I don't even want to leave it there. Is knocking on the door and meeting 250 homeowners and writing them a handwritten note and following up with them after you dropped off the first flyer. You think it would get you significantly more business than if you had just dropped off 6 flyers and ran through the neighborhood and stuck them on the door. You guys see what I'm saying? Because if there's 250 people in that neighborhood, 25 to 50 of them are moving a year, and you've met all of them. So over the next year, I mean, you're going to probably get 10 of them to call you versus you might not even get one to call you after 6 months. So when you design this big life, if one of your steps is, I'm going to do that door knocking thing that Brad talked about, and I'm going to knock on every door and I'm going to get 10 appointments in that neighborhood. You'll have to. You can't not get way more appointments. You're going to get 4 to 5 to 6 times more appointments doing it that way than any other just dropping it off or mailing it or doing whatever. So you're going to get more appointments. So if that helps you get to that goal of those 10 extra sales a year that would pay off your car, that's going to be your big life. So you got to track that stuff. All right, so understanding your goal. This is another great exercise. There's another one where some people use this with commission dollars and show the seller how the dollar gets divvied up. But it's actually to show you guys too where that commission dollar is going, because you got an agent, you got your market center that's taking a split, you have expenses that you have as a business owner that you have, and then you have your take home, which doesn't even reflect the taxes yet that have to come out of it. So the first thing, commissions are split 50-50 typically. And if not, it's going to be pretty darn close to 60-40 or 50-50, right? By the time you take out the market center cap dollars that you're paying towards, and again, this is before you cap out. Once you get to the point where you're selling 10, 15 houses a year or more, then you get to start keeping 100% of your commission. And I don't know what your market is as far as cap dollars. It might, how many houses do you guys have to sell before you're capped out basically? Do you know? Have you figured that out? You have to sell 10 houses, you have to sell 20 houses. Do you know what your split is on your market center dollars? No. Find that out. That's a very important number that you want to know. How much is coming off my commission check every single time I sell a house, and when does that stop? Because 100% is absolute real, and you want to hit that number as soon as possible. So if it's 15 sales to cap where you can keep 100% of your commissions, you're going to be giving yourself a 30% raise most likely at that time. So that could be your very first big goal, is I've got to at least sell enough to get into the 100%, because as you build your business to that, you'll go past that pretty quick. And it's probably like around a sale a month. Your price range and stuff is probably good enough. It's up there. But yeah, definitely you guys want to know what your cap dollars are, and what that is it's actually paying for the office that you have. So you do have a conference room, you have a front desk person, you have mailboxes for your mail to come to, gives you that business image. There is something of value that you're paying for that split. However, with our split capping, we're not collecting from you forever. See, I came from a brokerage where it never stopped. It didn't cap. I just kept paying forever. So I was actually selling 4 times as much as anyone else in the office, and I was basically paying for the office for the people that weren't producing, if that makes sense. And then you've got your expenses that need to come out of there, and taxes and everything. So it doesn't leave a whole lot left at the end of the day. Yet you can create unlimited income in real estate and probably make more money in real estate than you'd make doing anything else. Checking my time here. So here's what this would look like. If your average sale price is around 500,000, would we say that that's kind of fair for your guys' area? Is that a good number to use? I mean, you might be in the 300, 400 range, but I'm saying on average, you're going to have some 700s and you're going to have some 300s. So you're going to average 5. So your average commission on that for half of the commission is 15,000, or actually, I think that's the whole commission. No, that'd be 3%. 500,000. This is where I got to get my math out here and see here. Math is not a bad thing when it comes to commission checks. You want to get really good at that kind of math. So 500,000 times 0.03% is 15,000. So we're just looking at the half of the commission that you would get for bringing a buyer, or if you sold your $500,000 listing. So by the time you get done through all that, you got $37,000. I think that's around what your cap dollars might be. I might have averaged it just a little bit for your total cap dollars. It goes to the market center, and 3,000 goes back to your region and international. So there's about $40,000 that it's going to cost you to be in business, but it's not really costing you because we're collecting as you make money, and nobody comes back to collect it. So let's just say you have 2 sales in your first year. When we look at this commission split, you didn't pay $40,000 to have that really nice office, yet you had a nice office to work out of to give you the image that you have a big business. But so if your net income goal is say $250,000, and that's probably pretty basic. Can you guys live okay on $250,000? In your market with your rate of cost of living? Is 250,000 going to make it for you? Or does it need to be more? Or can it be less? Give me a thumbs up if it needs to be more just to survive, or a thumbs down if you could do it on that and it'd be a pretty nice lifestyle.
I think it depends, like if you're single, have a family.
Yeah. Yeah, so everybody's going to be different based on what they're doing with their money and what their big visions are and what boxes you filled in around that money you want to make. So, but I just took 250,000 and said, if you made 250,000, then you are going to pay in your $40,000 over that split structure. You're going to most likely, if you followed the model and you spent money on marketing, the 10% went to marketing and branding, you're going to spend about 75,000 on expenses. Now, I will tell you this, and this is a goal setting class, not a business, or not tracking your P&L and all that stuff. However, I will tell you that if you don't spend that percentage that the MREA book shares on like 10% for marketing and all that, you might, let's just say you didn't spend any money on marketing, you totally were word of mouth. What I know Gary Keller would say is, if you had invested 75,000, you might have done even more. So when you invest that money properly and track it and hold it accountable, so if I'm going to spend $1 on advertising, I want to get $5 back, not $2 back. I don't want to make my money back. I want to get $5 back. Then I'm investing in the right marketing. And if I put 10% towards that, it will double, triple, or quadruple my business. If I don't spend the money and I save it, put 75 grand in my pocket, but I could have put a lot more, 4 or 5 times what I was making at the end of the day. So your total GCI is 365,000. GCI is gross commissions earned. So that's the gross that came into you after expenses and company dollar. So if your average GCI is 15,000, that's your average commission check. It's going to take you 24 sales to hit 250,000. So, and again, I know this is the math stuff, but I'm telling you, here's the crazy thing. It's not a command class. However, guys, go find this in your goal setting thing in command. It is absolutely amazing. It's actually tied to your actual closed sales that you're doing. And if you're using command to put people in and you're following the command process, it will keep track of what you've got coming up, what you've got pending, what you've got closed, and it'll show you at an instant glance. That's like the whole purpose of all this technology stuff, is to put everything around one hub and make our lives easier. So as a real estate agent, we're not sitting there calculating how much money. We put it in command and go meet another person or go knock on those 5 doors in that neighborhood and get more appointments. So it is super, super easy to do. You just might need to schedule, and I don't know if we've gotten on scheduling yet. Block out like just an hour every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, maybe right before this class, where you just go get lost in all your stuff that you're implementing and applying. So that's either reviewing the manual for the class that we're about to do, going into command and trying to figure out where that goal section is. And if you give yourself permission to waste 1 hour, 3 days a week, to go in there and find it. I say waste because that's what we think we're doing with our time. Pretty soon you'll be pretty proficient at whatever it is you're working on, getting a system in place, getting a postcard campaign done, whatever it might be that you're working on. But it all comes back to, on that activity item, is doing the right activities. And I'm going to say this, the 80-20 rule we talk about a lot in Keller Williams. Is there anybody who's never heard 80-20 rule? Has everybody heard 80-20? And it's probably something along the lines of 20% of what you do generates 80% of your activities. But it also means, this goes back the other way, you got to be careful. 80% of what you're doing is generating 20% of your effort or your activities, your results. So 80% of your day is spent getting stuff that's got the results that you're getting right now. One last way I'll put this, just to look at this different, is 20% of what you did yesterday generated 80% of the income that you're making so far, or that you will make this year, which also means that 80% of what you did yesterday is going to make 20%. It's going to be responsible for 20% of the income you'll make this year. So if you wanted to, if you look at last year's income and it wasn't quite where you wanted it to be, and you'd like, how many of you would like to double what you made last year? Double, right? If you doubled, would that be a pretty good life? I mean, is it starting to get closer to the 250, or are you going on way past it? Double what you made last year. And if you weren't in business last year, then you're still setting your ground rules here, right? But if you wanted to double what you made last year, all you would have to do is figure out what the 80% stuff is that was generating 20% of your income. If you figured out what the 20% was that did 80%, that was responsible for 80% of that income, all you would have to do is do those 20% activities twice as much this year. And it's going to, I mean, we're talking a very specific activity, and you'll figure those out in your 411. It's not to do stuff, it's the have to do stuff. It's the knocking on 5 doors and writing the handwritten note. That is the 20% that generated 80% of the income. So if you doubled those activities, you're not even giving up half of your day yet. you're refocusing your day to where you're doing more productive activities, but you're only doing it for 40% of the day, and you will double your income for 2022. And you still have 60% of the day to do the stuff that we like to sit around and do, or we get caught up in being busy trying to find business versus picking up the phone and calling people and getting that appointment, or just picking up the phone, strengthening the relationship and hearing them say something like, yeah, I'm not so sure what's going to happen. My husband didn't come home this weekend, so we might have a divorce on our hands. That right there is a listing and 2 sales. That's 3 sales. As much as I hate to say it, if there's trouble at home, it might be 3 sales. And if you can be the one to guide them through the process, like the divorce is already the worst thing that can happen to a lot of people. So if you can guide them through the process and make it as pleasant as it can be, and get as much money as you can out of the house and find homes that you love, that you guys can both move on with your life, they're going to appreciate that later. I'm just anything on that 20%. If you just did it more often, following up with people, you're going to hear people say they got a lot of stuff wrong at the house. Man, I started looking at all the things that need to be done around the house or around the property. That might be, well, have you thought about just figuring out what the value is in the current condition, selling it without doing those repairs and moving into a house that already has everything done versus fixing it all? I mean, you might make more money doing it that way. In a market where there's not enough houses on the market, they may not have to fix as much as they usually had to fix. Is this kind of making sense? It's helping you guys figure out what your goals are on these things. So here's the get caught up to my notes here. Just another saying in here. What is the one thing that you can do right now that would make everything else easier unnecessary? This is actually where I need to pause for a second. What do you guys see as your 20% that's generating 80% of your income? What do you guys see that being? What is your one thing that if you did it more regularly and more often, it would actually make your business grow?
Calls.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just making more calls or calls at all.
Okay. Yeah. And is it making more calls, or is it making them more consistently and regularly?
All of the above.
Yes. Okay.
Sometimes we just make the calls, but we just never follow up, or don't follow up fast enough, soon enough, and tracking them, like when was the last time I called? When, like when did I promise to call back?
Yeah. Yeah. And that is tough. I mean, tracking is the hardest part. And when they say the fortune is in the follow-up, it's one of the reasons why I really strongly suggest getting a master list to put everybody in, because then your master list, even by itself, is really what you got right now. And you're just kind of looking for people and you're calling, and sometimes we'll spend more time figuring out who to call, or we're not sure who to call. And next thing we know, well, dang, it's 6 o'clock. I've been working all day long. I haven't even made a call yet. So I appreciate you sharing that, because that is the reality. And that master list gives you something to open up and go to and start doing it without even thinking about it. Not spending an hour trying to figure out who to call or calling one person here. Because like once you start your calls and you don't have a list to pull from, you'll call somebody and sure enough, hey, they answered and they talked to me. And yeah, they might be interested in the next, they were thinking about selling in the next 3 months. So then I'm like all excited about my next 3-month sale coming. And I'm trying to figure out what to say and get an appointment and figure out what the value is. And then next thing I know, an hour just went by and I made no more calls. Where if you have your master list, you open it, you call, and you put them in command and you write the handwritten note, and then you go to the next person and call and you dial as fast as you can. That's where your calls start getting consistent. And I'm telling you guys, man, the secret is when you do that consistently every single day a little bit, and you just have somewhere to pull from just to do it, then you're gonna eventually get to the point where your phone just rings just like that, right? It just rings and it's somebody that wants to sell their house versus you having to go find that sale. Anybody else that you're kind of figuring out your one thing might be this, that if I just did this every single day, it'd make everything else easier? Yeah.
Question. Since you mentioned, just door knocking is more effective than dropping off flyers. From the calls that we can make, which one is most effective? Calling expired FISBOs, circle prospecting, or circle of influence?
So you have to track it to find out. So there's 100 ways to get 100 appointments. And I'll just kind of put it to you this way. If you go to family reunion, there's going to be all these breakout sessions on everybody sharing their success in their real estate business. There's going to be an entire panel of people that have sold a lot of houses doing expireds. And there'll be 5 people up there. Those people focused on expireds because they liked expireds and they enjoyed expireds and they had a system for expireds. If you turn around and look at the whole room and said, who else has had this same kind of a success? It's probably nobody, or they'd be up on the stage. So you're always going to hear from people that are successful. The answer is you're going to have the most success with what you have the most fun doing. I will tell you that talking to strangers and trying to convince them to like you and trust you when you don't even have the confidence that you are the best agent yet is not a fun business model. Calling my friends and family who are going to be a little easier on me is going to be a lot more safe, fun model. But a lot of people won't go there because they think they have to sell real estate to them. It's like, I don't want to call my friends and family and be that pushy realtor. Fine, don't. But what you do know from this class is that 100% of them are moving. Either now, in a year, in 3 years, or 5 years, or 7 years. So if you just got paid to build a pipeline by reconnecting with your friends and family and not even talk about real estate's going to come up if you do it properly. They're going to know you sell real estate. And if they talk to you more than anybody else and you stay in touch with them and you listen to their conversation, they're going to pick up the phone and call you and say, hey, they may not even be thinking that you're experienced enough to use to sell the house, but they're going to call you first and go, hey, you're in real estate. What do you think the market's doing right now? Right. And that's where you get the appointment to come in and steal that back if they weren't going to use you. But 78% of the time, if they're calling you to see what the value of their property is, they're going to choose you anyway. They go with the first agent they meet 78% of the time. The only time you really lose that kind of appointment, if you have that kind of trust with everybody and they know you're the real estate go-to person because you're knowledgeable about real estate, more knowledgeable than them. You don't have to be the best realtor in town, but you're more knowledgeable than them and they can ask questions. If they know, man, if you ever see anything on your taxes that looks weird, this is general follow-up. You ever see anything on your taxes that looks weird, call me. I'll figure it out. You ever see a neighbor's house go on the market and you're wondering how much it is? Always call me. I'll just pull it up. Text me the address. I'll pull it up. I mean, those are that's what my lead generation looks like. I'm just calling people, talking to them. And then somehow before we get off the phone, it's like, you can call me if you have anything to do with real estate whatsoever, right? And they're like, oh, absolutely. I always would. And that was the first time we talked about real estate on that call. So, and then they get a note and they get the drip mails and all that other stuff. So if you're going to do expireds and you like that, that's great. There are people that can there's people that cold call all day long as a job. They don't mind it. They don't mind listening to the no's and all that other stuff. Then you do what you want to do and have fun selling real estate. If you don't like any of that, you don't have to do that. There's a lot of other ways to do real estate, but you've got to figure out what is that one thing that if I do expireds, I'm going to get that's going to make everything else unnecessary, right? You want to get a lot of for sale by owners. What's the one thing you could do with a for sale by owner to get 100% of the for sale by owners to list with you? List it for free. You can't do that. You're going to be out of business. But if you listed it for free, you would get a lot more for sale by owners to list with you, wouldn't you? So I'm just saying, look at what you're doing and figure out what it is that brings the most value to them. And when you figure out their why and all that stuff, you can earn their trust. I will tell you, this is part of goal setting. I did bring that for sale by owner story up for a reason, because when I'm coaching somebody and somebody sets a goal, I got to make $60,000, single mom, divorced. I have no other income coming in and I'm relying on a commission only job. I need $60,000 for my base, and I've got a $9,000 credit card I got to pay off and a $7,000 car I have to pay off. So there's X amount of sales that have to happen. That is going to equate to 2 sales a month. So if you're coaching and that's your goal, and you tell me I cannot have any of that stuff in 1 year because all my other income stops, I got to have all of that paid off or I don't know how I'm going to pay for it later. If you told me that, then if month one rolls by and you have 0 sales, I am going to tell you, you need to go list for sale, the next 2 for sale by owners for free, because it's not going to make you any money, but you haven't gotten your 2 sales. And the goal was 2 sales first. You got to have sales to make money. So the next 2 for sale by owners that you sold for free, you're not going to do that again. You won't do it after the first one. You're gonna be like, man, I just made them $50,000 or $100,000 in equity, and they didn't even pay me. I did it for free. The next guy's not. Well, it's going to drive you to get really good at protecting your commission, and now you're getting good at getting the for sale by owners because now you have experience. So if you didn't hit your goal, that may be a challenge that you have to go list the next one for free. Next month, you'll make enough calls so you're not doing one for free, because it's not fun and you are losing money. It's not going to help you get out of debt. So understand that what I'm saying here is you're not going to keep doing that. You're going to start doing the right activities so you don't have to do it for free, so you can pay your bills off. Does that make sense? So again, jumping into what successful agents do. Let me see if catching up to myself here. They lead generate for buyers and sellers every single day. In fact, one of the things that if you are new and you're not getting sales going and you've got bills that are either piling up or you're even using up some stash of money that you saved and you're tapping into that every month, you got to put a stop to that right away. And so the question that always stuck to me was, what is the fastest way to the cash? And if every single day you can look at your activities, and when you're figuring out what that 20% is to get 80% of your income, and you want to do it 40% of the day, is the activity that I'm doing the fastest way to the cash? So is the fastest way to the cash doing a postcard mailing? Right? Probably not. That's going to take time and investment, and over time you'll start getting some business. So that's not the fastest way to the cash. What's the fastest way to the cash? Is it knocking on doors? This is a trick question. I don't know if that's the fastest way to the cash, but it's faster than doing the postcard waiting for them to call me, right? But an even faster way to the cash is if I were going to go into a neighborhood, what if I pulled up the people that have been living in the house for 5 to 10 years? Like, you could pull up a neighborhood and then go through the sales over the last 10 years. Anything sold from 5 years ago to 10 years ago, you click on the tax record and there's been no sales since. I don't know if you guys can do that in yours or not. I can. And I can see that the same people live there. Well, those people are most likely about ready to move if everybody moves every 5 to 10 years. So that is the fastest way to the cash. So if I was like looking for the thing that's going to get the most activity and the most listing appointments, because I have to have 2, and I've got 2 weeks left in the month, and I have to have 2 by the end of the month. That was my have to goal. Then I'm going to start bouncing around the neighborhoods and just hitting all the homes that they bought 5 to 10 years ago. I have now increased my chances of finding an appointment or a buyer or somebody thinking about it. Now, again, it's still going to require follow-up. But the successful agents lead generate every day. We got a couple more things I want to hit in the next couple of minutes. And this one is the big one, the 411. The 411 is in page 7 of your action guide. And I'm just going to run through real quick how powerful this is. This is probably one of the coolest things Keller Williams has that we offer our agents. And I don't think most agents know how to utilize it properly. So at the very top is your annual goal. And for simplicity's sake, let's just say it's $120,000. $120,000 is what I want to make, right? Or you could say $1 million too if you want. 120. So the monthly goal, if we're in January right now, so this is perfect. So actually what I would do is I would write down 120,000 under my annual goal. And just think of it this way, visually walk through this, but it's going to be a little different. And then I make 12 copies of this, 12 copies showing that 120,000. And that's for January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, December, right? And then on each of those 12 pages, I'm going to write 12,000. Because 12,000 in January, 12,000 in February, 12,000 in March, 12,000 in April. At the end of December, I'll have 120,000. So I made 12 copies. I write 12,000 on those 12 copies. Now I take the January copy that says 12,000 and it's got the photocopy of the 120,000 at the top. To do 12,000 this month, I'll need to do 3,000 the first week, 3,000 the second week, 3,000 the third week, and 3,000 the fourth week. So if your average commission check's $5,000, you have to get a sale in the first 2 weeks. That's $6,000. You got to have 3,000 coming in a week or 6,000 every 2 weeks to stay on track for your 12,000 for the month, to stay on track for your 120,000 for the year. So on the January one, I take that page and I make 4 copies. It's not filled in yet. The weeks aren't filled in yet. 4 copies. Now I'm going to take the first copy and write 3,000. The second copy, I'm going to write 3,000. So there's nothing in the first column on the second page. I'm going to take the third copy and write 3,000 in week 3. There's nothing in the other 2 weeks and nothing in the week behind it. It's on its own separate page. And I'm going to do that. Yeah, go ahead.
Where can you find this?
It is in your book, and it is also on the site where you're downloading the manuals from under the supporting documents and stuff. This should be on page 7 in your book. Yeah, so it looks a little bit different here. This is actually in your book is what's online. So you can do this online as well. But honestly, if you Google 4-1-1 goal sheet, Keller Williams, you'll find this actual one that you see on your screen. This one's actually done on the computer. But I want you to understand it from this paper point because it'll help you understand how to maximize the 4-1-1. So you guys see what ends up happening is I have 52 copies and I got them stacked up, and I'm starting with, now we're on week 3 of January. So you need to go back and did you make 3,000 in the first week? No. So you go to the second page and you bring the 3,000 over. So now I got 6,000 I would have to do by the second week. If you didn't close anything in the second week, you got to bring the 6,000 over to your third page now and write 9,000. So right now I'm looking at the third week of January. If I have no sales so far and I want to make $120,000, I got to get $9,000 on the books. So that's like a sale or 2. I got to get those. I got to get listings. So now you look at that week goal and say, what is it really going to take for me to make $9,000 this week? Do you have to call 100 people? Do you have to door knock 100 doors? What do you have to do to get 2 appointments so that you could have the opportunity for that $9,000? And you have to do whatever it is. It's the must-do list if you want to make $120,000. Don't try and make it all up later. Divvy it by 12 and stay on track so that when you have some extra business in the summertime, you're not going to have to play catch up in November and December. So always even it out, whether you think the market's up or down at different times. The only time I suggest that ever be different is if you're in a vacation market. But if you're anywhere else in the world, divvy it up by 12, stay on that track, and you're going to work harder in January and February, and it will pay off for a smoother August and September. So just to kind of pull this together, don't lose focus on what you are working towards and what your goal is. If you got, I just showed you an example for 120,000. So if there's any of you right now sitting here going, 120,000. I was the thumbs up on 250 and I don't have any sales yet this year. You need to be at 18,000 right now. That you're falling farther behind, which means you need to work harder on the right activities right now. There's no maybe. You have to do it, or else that is not your goal. You might have to come off of 250 and go back to 120,000. You might have to come off 120,000 and put 60, because if you're at 60,000, you only need to have 1 sale by now. So that's going to be easier to get, but you're only going to make $60,000 or $70,000 this year at that rate. So again, use the 411 the right way, and it is done digitally now. So that's the recap. That's the end of our session. Any questions about anything? Have I really stirred something up on the goal setting and the 411 and all that? Did I explain the 411 pretty good?
Yes.
Yeah, very good. Great.
Yeah, and remember, it's the have to do list. So a lot of people still, when you go in and do it, if you want to send it to me and have me review it, I'll look at it. I have no judgment on what you've written and what your goals are. I might ask questions on some things that you're doing, but what I usually see is something in the weekly 411 that has nothing to do with the monthly or the annual goal. So now they're trying to turn it into a to-do list. This is your have to do list. So everything should directly relate to the annual goal. And you might have a goal that you can accomplish in 3 months. So that annual goal would be, I accomplished this by March, and then go back to your January, February, March and divide it up to what needs to happen to make that happen by March, and then divide that up by 4 in each month and do the right activities. So if you know it's 20 calls to get 5 people on the phone, to put 5 people in the database, and that will generate 1 to 2 appointments a month, then you know you have to put 5 people in the database, which means you have to get 5 addresses, which means you have to write 5 notes. Those are the things that are in your weekly column. I'm going to write 5, I'm going to add 5 people, I'm going to write 5 notes, and I'm going to, do the activities that will get me to more appointments. Was this good stuff for you guys?
Yes.
Yeah. Anybody have anything else you need clarity on, have questions about, not sure about? All right. So guys, the 411, download it, play with it, take some time to go back and review the book after we jump off here. And oh yeah, let me get to the, this is all your script playing and role playing for your appointments, getting into command, doing that stuff. But there's the survey. Let me pop it up here and throw it in the chat box so you can actually just click on it. It will open up a second window so that when we log off, you got this window open. Let me know what you thought about the session, really. If it's really helping you understand goals a little bit different, kind of getting you maybe a little excited about figuring out what that 411 really looks like. Those are all good things to know. All right. Good stuff. Look forward to seeing you in a couple days.
Thank you, Brad.
Before we head out
Thank
to the
you.
week. You bet, guys. Hopefully you love this information and it was a good class for you.
Definitely was.
It definitely was. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure.